three of the city folks there who work with TIFs and found out some information about how they operate. A lot of what they do is housing related, and we thought, well, that's a good component for us, especially if it's affordable housing. If that wasn't necessarily their focus, but after having had a good meeting with them, we went to Sioux Falls and met with these two, and really felt like they had some good information, some good projects that we can relate to that are in the downtown area that are economic development driven and such. So we felt like there was some really good information that we got from them, and that's why we invited them to come out and be with us tonight. Our policy that we've been working on, as I was mentioning to Darla, we've kind of been working on it for quite a long time. Since I started last year, we've been working on it, and Patsy's had some drafts and some ideas for quite some time prior to that. But we feel like there's a lot of good reasons why we need to address this, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we get home. But I did want to welcome you here and thank you for coming. We had at first thought that we would just jump right into some official review of our proposal, but we've determined since then that we'll slow it down just a little bit so that we can allow for additional review time, both by you and by staff and by developers who are interested in tax increment financing as well. We have had already some opportunities for the developers to review this. We did give you, one of the things was some responses to comments that we've received from some that are concerned or have been concerned, and we feel like we've addressed those well. And we know that you have additional questions, and we hope to be able to answer them all tonight or in the days to come. So we are not moving officially in our schedule for review either by Planning Commission or City Council yet, but we hope to be able to do so in the coming months, so that we can determine what is what are the necessary changes that we should be looking at, and put that into an acceptable draft. We understand that everybody has different views on how economic development and tax increment financing and all that should operate in the city, and we're never going to get everybody 100% on board with the proposal, but what we hope to get is a majority that will support some of what we believe are some needed changes to tighten up our policy, to focus more on economic development that does actually need this type of financing, not just something they can nicely take advantage of, but just something that will actually help them to perform a project that otherwise would not be able to do. And we believe that that was the intent initially for setting up tax increment financing from the beginning. So anyway, with that, feel free as we move along. These two from Sioux Falls are going to give us a presentation on their program. Feel free to ask them questions as we go. After they're done with their presentation, we'll have more time for that. Then we will, after that, depending on how much time we have or how late in the evening it is, we will go ahead and start the review of our proposal. And again, feel free to ask questions as we go. If needed, we will schedule another one of these to continue our presentation and our discussion about what the proposal is. We don't want to feel like we're rushed or anything. So with that, I think I'll just turn the time over to Mike Cooper and Dustin Powers and let them tell us what they've got.
I almost said good morning. None of us ever work at night, right? That's pretty typical. Well, we're really happy to be here tonight to have this discussion with you. You know, one of the things that I've discovered over the years that's probably challenging to talk about and explain and understand is tax increment financing. So I appreciate the process that you're working through to look at your policy. Dustin and I are going to share this presentation tonight, but just by way of a little bit of introduction, I've been with the City of Sioux Falls for just over 32 years as of July, and Dustin has been with us for 5 years. Prior to that, he was with Minnehaha County Planning and Zoning. So Dustin is our tax increment financing person, and we have a new mayor that took office in May, along with 2 of our 8 council members. And one of the things that the mayor did was some reorganization. So we merged what was community development with planning and building services, and now we're called planning and development services. So our department got bigger, and we include more functions, including the housing division of Sioux Falls. So that's kind of a quick overview. And if I could, just quickly, so that we know who our audience is, I had a chance to meet a couple planning commissioners, but could you just go around and quickly tell us who you are?
I'll start.
Yep.
Darla Drew, Ward 5 Council Rep.
Okay.
Kurt Hughes, Planning Commission.
Eric Ottenbacher, Planning Commission.
Amanda Scott, represent Ward 4 North Rapid, and also this year currently serving as council president.
Eric Brown, Planning Commission.
John Roberts, the other Ward 4 council person.
Vince Vidal, Planning Commission.
Michael Ward, Planning Commission.
And Karen Bowman, County Assumption Finance Officer.
Joel Landine, City Attorney. Richard Nordstrom, member to the Council of Ward 2.
Sarah Hansel, Long Range Planner.
And Ted Johnson, City Engineer.
Well, it's great to have planning commissioners. Those are some of my favorite people. As well as elected officials. So let's just jump into this. What we're going to go through quickly tonight, and you have a copy of this, is just kind of give you an overall summary of our tax increment financing program, some of the guidelines that we have been using historically. Justin will get into the application review process, how we go through the approval of our TIF projects, and then the certification of expenses. So some of the more weeds, into the weeds as far as the administration of that, because I think that would be another area that you might be interested in looking at. So, next. We first dealt with tax increment financing back in 1989. And at that time, we basically created the downtown TIF district. And I'll show you a little bit of a map of downtown Sioux Falls if you're not familiar with it. So that was our first adventure into creating a downtown tax increment financing district. And it was really motivated by the lack of development activity in downtown, and that we needed to give downtown a boost. And so we thought that creating this TIF district was one way to do that. And that resulted in a number of projects later on through the years. So we've only done 21 in the total history of our city. Those have been focused on redevelopment within our downtown and the core areas around downtown. So 18 of the 21. And currently we have 12 active districts. So here's a map. I'm going to move over here. If you're not familiar with Sioux Falls, the red line is the official boundaries of our downtown district, and that goes back to the 1960s when an urban renewal district was established. This is the same boundaries that our downtown Sioux Falls organization uses for the business improvement district assessments, and so there's a lot of other reasons why that geographical boundary is important. And then we have a number of older residential neighborhoods around the boundaries of downtown Sioux Falls. So this shows you the current active TIF districts, and we'll get into those a little bit more. But you can see the vast majority of those are in the heart of downtown. A couple of the others are in residential areas. And then there's one up in the northwest that Dustin will give you a little bit more information about in what we call the Sanford Sports Complex. So again, the focus of our program has historically been looking at ways to incentivize redevelopment within the downtown and core neighborhoods. So I know you're not going to be familiar with a lot of these names, but I just want to go through quickly the ones that we're actively following, just to give you a sense of what they are. So in 2005, TIF District 5 for a new office development downtown. This was in the area that used to be a zip feed mill on the east side of the Big Sioux River downtown, and that was redeveloped with a multi-story office building. This was the one and only TIF that we've done with public financing. We kind of learned our lesson and we're not doing that anymore. So the termination of date of that is 2021. Minnesota Center is a downtown office building in 2007. The Lumber Exchange is a combination of a new office building and parking ramp adjoining. And that was actually, that was a pretty good sized project of $4.75 million. This is the reimbursable amount. And again, Dustin's gonna get into that a little bit more about how do we come up with that number when these districts are established. Bancroft Apartments is a residential development in what we call the Whittier neighborhood. Took an underutilized block almost of land, put the parcels together, and created some multifamily residential development. Next. The DeKalb Lofts residential development in the downtown area. Raven Industries has our corporate headquarters downtown. And so we worked with them on doing some upgrading of their office building and also some exterior improvements along our Big Sioux Greenway. One of our bigger projects, or more impressive projects downtown, is the Hilton Garden Inn. We actually had a great idea back in the 1960s to build this concrete parking ramp over the Big Sioux River. And that served us well over the years, but people kept asking, can we take that old ugly parking ramp down? Because it was beginning to be a high maintenance project. So we took it down and we developed a new downtown hotel as well as some additional parking by utilizing TIF financing. And then the other kind of outlier that, again, Dustin will talk to you more about, that really doesn't fit the mold of downtown or the core neighborhoods is what we call the Sanford Sports Complex. And this was approved in 2012, which includes sports fields and iceplex, indoor tennis, the Sanford Pentagon and Fieldhouse, and also some junior football fields that are run by our Parks and Recreation Department. And that was a combination of public, private, and nonprofit funding. Whittier Housing, multifamily residential. Phillips Avenue Lofts, another downtown housing project with multifamily and first floor commercial space. Washington Square is a multi-story mixed-use building across from the downtown Washington Pavilion. The ground floor is retail. There's multi-levels of indoor parking, office, and condominiums. So they're all kind of stacked up like a wedding cake, and I think we'll have a picture of that to show you. The Cascade is our newest one. That was approved in 2017, which is a combination of first floor commercial with underground parking and multi-story apartments up above. That's going to be about 200 multifamily units on the north end of downtown along our Phillips Avenue core. So this, again, the takeaway is what are the projects, when were they approved, what were they approved for, how much is the reimbursable from the TIF financing, and then what's the termination date. We typically go out the full 20 years, but as Dustin again will talk about, in some cases, those get reimbursed sooner than that, depending on how the TIF project builds out. So what are some of the guidelines that we've used historically? As I said, we recognize that we want to encourage the redevelopment of deteriorated or otherwise blighted property in Sioux Falls. And Mr. City Attorney, how many different definitions are there of blighted property? A lot. You can kind of, whatever you want to call blighted, you can kind of do. But for us, it's really underutilized, primarily within the downtown and core neighborhoods. We want to stimulate economic development by assisting projects that really promote some long-term economic vitality. We want to stimulate increased private investments in areas that would otherwise remain undeveloped and underutilized, and in the long term provide a significant source of additional tax revenue to all taxing entities, city, county, school districts. So traditionally, we've utilized the TIF to offset the cost of extraordinary development expenditures, and we'll explain kind of what those have been historically. The increment has been dedicated to reimbursement of eligible costs as outlined in the TIF plans that get approved and brought before the council for consideration. This is pretty much what's outlined in South Dakota law that you need to follow. A lot of our TIF reimbursements have gone towards site preparation, environmental remediation. Within our downtown, we historically have a lot of petroleum in the soil because of gas stations or other uses that, including the railroad, that were done historically. We have bedrock downtown, the Sioux Court site, that has to be blasted away for basements and underground parking. So there's a lot of higher cost for development within the downtown than there would be in some of the outlying greenfields area. And then just putting together the